Alright, so let's talk about money again. So salary is a big decision factor when people decide to choose whether or not they should enter engineering. You know, you've heard the big three: doctors, lawyers, engineers, engineer being one of them. So of course money can be a really big incentive to go into this field. But I want to tell you the honest truth about being an engineer at the start of this video, that not everyone with the title of engineer will be making $100,000 a year. And I know even for me, deep down, I feel very envious and jealous when I hear of some like fresh graduate software engineer making like $150,000 working at Google when I'm working my butt off, or I've had, you know, X amount of years of experience in the engineering field making maybe just a fraction of that. So yeah, it hurts me too. Someone with like 0 years of experience making like double my amount versus me who has, you know, when we worked in the field for like 5 years is making like half of that. It's pretty sad. But of course, we're not comparing like apples to apples here. I can't compare someone who's like a chemical engineer or a software engineer to a environmental engineer or a chemical engineer. Not all engineers are created equally, and what we do is completely different, even though we all have the title of engineer. I know deep down I don't have like the skills of a software engineer to code anything, and if they work at Google, you know, I don't know anything about that, the back end of that. For the most part, I heavily rely on Google to do my job, so if they, you know, if Google somehow crashes and like they're no longer existing, then I can't really perform my job as well either. So I do heavily rely off of them to do their job in order for me to do my job. So I do think it's fair that each engineer will have its separate pay scale in a way such that, you know, some people deserve higher pay than others. That could just be because their work is more crucial and more like urgent than your job, or at least my job, for example. So in the end, they just provide more value than I do, and I guess I'm okay with that. Alright, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Currently, I am making $85,000 a year at my job, and I've been working my job for about 3 years. So let's do the math here. Assuming that they just give me a bonus or a pay raise every single year just to keep up with inflation, which is about maybe 3%. Currently it's not, but on average about 3%. So let's do the math here. I'm gonna get my calculator out. So $85,000 is my starting right now. If they increase that by 3% next year, then I'll be making $87,500 a year. Now I want to say I want to make $100,000, and I want to calculate how long will that take until I reach $100,000. So after 1 year, I'll be making $87,000. After 2 years, I'll be making $90,000. After 3 years, I'll be making $92,800. After 4 years, $95,600. 5 years, $98,500. Finally, after 6 years, I'll be making $101,500. So the breakdown is just that I'll be increasing 3% on top of the previous year. So 85,000 times 1.03, give me some number, and then later times that some number by 1.03 and just, you know, compound that. So I got my answer. After 6 years from today, I'll eventually reach that breaking point of making over $100,000. That means that I would have had to have worked for a total of 9 years at my job, assuming like there's no extra benefits, or, you know, again, assuming that they have that just 3% raise. So at that point, I'd be like, what, 33 years old? Now the question is, do I really want to wait that long to make $100,000? Is it really worth waiting another 6 years to make over $100,000 when you know that some Google software engineer just came out of college with 0 years of experience making like $150,000? Obviously, when I'm saying this out loud, it's like sort of absurd to think that. So the answer to whether or not I should leave, like, that's up to me to decide. But now let's move on to you. What can you realistically expect to be your salary when you get into this field? Like, if you actually decide to do environmental engineering, like, what is the actual expectations, the salary expectations that you're probably gonna get? So here's my take, and here's my experience. Here's what I've seen, at least in my location, for, you know, this field. Again, I've been in this field for about 3 years, and I am specifically located in California. So realistically, if you have 0 years of experience, or like 0 to 2 years of experience, you just graduated with a bachelor's only in environmental engineering, and you live in California, the most, or at least the average that I've seen that you might take home is about $50,000 to $65,000 a year. So roughly about $60,000 a year At least that's where it is in California. Now understand that location has a lot to do with your salary as well. California is already a very expensive state to live in, so the higher the cost of living, the higher the expected pay. So that means that probably $65,000, again starting with 0 years of experience, $65,000 is the maximum amount that you'd receive for the minimum amount of experience. Other factors include things like education, experience, certification. So if you have like your professional engineering license already, of course that's going to increase your pay. But again, just starting off, we're probably just expecting about $50,000 to $60,000, and then you'll climb that ladder as you gain more experience, as you gain more certification, and so on. So the longer you work there, the more you'll gain, and the more the higher your pay will be. And it could be variable depending on your state. So again, California, very expensive. The most you'd receive is probably $60,000 for living here. And so, I mean, that's the realistic truth about what you'd be receiving for a salary in this environmental engineering field. That's my take on the $100,000 salary as an engineer. It does make me wonder, like, did I choose the right field? If your goal is to make $100,000 a year straight up, don't choose environmental engineering. You're in the wrong field. There's definitely different ways to make money, and environmental engineering is not one of them. So don't choose this field if you want to make money. Again, I'm just being realistic with you. You're here for a different purpose. And I am interested in like learning how to make extra money on top of my job, on top of being an environmental engineer. Even though you might think that, more money, more corruption, it's bad for the environment, people are just like exploiting the environment just for money. I mean, there's some truth to that, but overall, in the end, we all want to have more money. Just so, I guess, depending on how you use the money, can make a difference. So if I have a good, pure, clean heart who loves the environment, more money coming into me would probably make the environment better compared to someone who's like super greedy and maybe they're polluting the environment just for money. That's gonna turn out bad for them, turn out bad for the environment. So it all depends on your mindset and like what your goals are. Obviously, give the money to a good person. So yeah, in future videos, I hope to somehow incorporate ideas on how to make money on the side as an environmental engineer, still doing your passion, basically trying to help the environment, but also accumulate more money. So those videos might come out in the future on this channel. Alright, so if you found this video helpful, go ahead and share, like, subscribe to all your environmental specialists or environmental engineer friends. Show them this video so they can have a realistic expectation as to what they'd be receiving in this environmental engineering field. I'm not trying to get your hopes down, but I just want you to understand like what you're really gonna face. So hopefully you like the transparency. Okay, that's all I have for the video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.